Right, let's talk about the most audacious political power play British politics has seen since Boris Johnson decided a garden party during lockdown was technically a work event. Andy Burnham, the self-styled King of the North, Mayor of Greater Manchester and owner of what is arguably the most recognizable hair in British politics, is preparing to stage what might be the most transparent leadership challenge disguised as civic duty since, well, ever. The man wants to swap his mayoral office for a Westminster seat in the Gorton and Denton by-election. And if you believe he's doing this purely out of love for Manchester, I've got a working Northern Rail service to sell you. Before we dive into this absolute theatre of political ambition, quick favour, if you're finding this properly entertaining, smash that subscribe button. Over 94% of viewers haven't yet. It's completely free, takes literally 1 second, and it means the absolute world to us here at British Mirror. Cheers if you did. Now back to the madness. So here's what's happening. Andy Burnham has written a nearly 700-word letter to Labour's National Executive Committee, essentially asking permission to enter what he's framing as a battle for Manchester's soul. He's positioned this by-election as nothing less than the frontline defence against the poison of divisive politics threatening to infiltrate Greater Manchester. Noble, right? Except this is also the same Andy Burnham who has been circling the Labour leadership like a very patient, very ambitious hawk since roughly 2010. The man has already lost 2 leadership contests in 2010 and 2015, and if you think he's given up on number 10, you clearly haven't been paying attention to British political psychology. Nobody writes a 700-word letter about civic duty. That's a manifesto, darling. Now let's address the elephant wearing a rosette in the room. Labour won Gorton and Denton in July 2024 with 18,555 votes. Comfortable, you'd think. But here's where it gets spicy. Reform UK came second with 5,142 votes. That's a significant chunk, and in the current political climate, where Reform is hoovering up disaffected voters like Dyson on turbo mode, that number represents a genuine threat. The Greens are also in the mix, ready to siphon off left-wing Labour votes like they're collecting Pokémon cards. Lee Anderson, Reform's deputy leader, has basically rolled up his sleeves and said bring it on, claiming this by-election is far from a Labour certainty. And you know what? He might actually have a point. Think about the stakes here for a moment. If Burnham runs and wins, he's back in Westminster with a renewed mandate, a fresh mandate, and the kind of underdog comeback narrative that British voters absolutely love. He becomes the man who took on Reform in their northern stronghold territory and won. That's leadership material right there, the kind that makes Sir Keir Starmer's position look about as secure as a chocolate teapot. But if Burnham runs and loses, that's not just egg on his face, that's a full English breakfast of political humiliation. As one Labour MP rather deliciously put it, that would be the end of his political career. High stakes? Mate, this is political Russian roulette with 5 bullets in the chamber. But here's where this whole saga becomes absolutely fascinating from a strategic standpoint. Andy Burnham has been Mayor of Greater Manchester since 2017, and by most accounts he's done a fairly decent job. He's championed the Manchester way, this idea of a different kind of politics, more collaborative, more focused on devolution and local control. He's fought for better transport, he's taken on the government for funding, and he's positioned himself as this northern champion standing up to Westminster. It's been politically savvy, building a power base outside the Westminster bubble whilst simultaneously making himself look like the answer to Labour's problems. Clever boy. Now he wants to take that brand national. In his letter to the NEC, Burnham argues that Manchester cannot reach its full potential unless similar changes happen at the national level. Translation, I've proven I can do this locally, now let me show you what I can do for the whole country. He's even pledged to support the government, not undermine it, and claims he's passed this assurance to the Prime Minister directly, which is politics speak for "I'm definitely going to undermine you, but I'm going to do it whilst smiling and claiming I'm being supportive." It's like telling someone you're going to stab them in the back, but promising to use a very clean knife. Now let's address the policy hints in Burnham's letter. He's talking about greater state control over utilities, questioning why the country gave away control of essential services in the first place. This is proper old-school Labour territory, the kind of policies that would have Michael Foot nodding approvingly from beyond the grave. He wants Labour to go further and faster, which, depending on your political persuasion, either sounds absolutely brilliant or utterly terrifying. Either way, it's positioning that places him firmly to the left of Starmer's relatively cautious centre-ground approach. This isn't just about getting back into Parliament, this is about setting out an alternative vision for Labour. And here's where the Labour Party's internal dynamics become messier than a Westminster coffee morning. If the NEC blocks Burnham from standing, there will be absolute uproar. His supporters will claim the leadership is afraid of him, that they're blocking democracy, that they're preventing a popular local champion from representing his community. The headlines write themselves. But if they allow him to stand and he wins, suddenly there's this charismatic, successful mayor sitting on the backbenches with leadership credentials and a fresh electoral victory. That's not just awkward for Starmer, that's potentially catastrophic. Leadership speculation would go from background noise to deafening roar faster than you can say confidence vote. The timing is particularly delicious or disastrous depending on where you're sitting. This is all happening ahead of the May elections when Labour is already facing challenges. Keir Starmer's approval ratings have been, shall we say, underwhelming. The government has had a rocky start, dealing with everything from NHS crises to economic challenges to the perpetual chaos that is British infrastructure. The last thing they need is internal drama about leadership succession. But that's exactly what they're getting, served up on a silver platter courtesy of Andy Burnham's ambition. Conservative MP Matt Vickers has already weighed in, claiming Labour is descending into open warfare over leadership, and whilst that's obviously opportunistic point-scoring from the opposition, he's not entirely right. The public does deserve better than political psychodrama, but let's be honest, political psychodrama is basically Britain's national sport at this point.
Now, whilst Burnham's busy dismantling Farage's strategy, there's growing speculation about his own political future. Following suspended Labour MP Andrew Gwynn's announcement that he's stepping down for medical reasons, people are wondering if the King of the North could be returning to Westminster. Some are even speculating he could challenge Keir Starmer's position as Prime Minister. That's quite the jump from mayor to potential PM, but in British politics right now, stranger things have happened. We've had 3 prime ministers in the space of months. We've had lettuce outlasting leaders. Nothing's off the table anymore. But Burnham's got other things on his mind right now, specifically something he's waited all his life for. On February 28th, for the first time in its history, the Brit Awards are moving out of London and coming to Manchester. Burnham's absolutely buzzing about it, and you can hear the genuine excitement in his voice. It's massive for Manchester. I've been for years hoping that this day would come. I was the culture secretary a long time ago, and I said to them, "Come on, when are you coming to Manchester?" This matters more than you might think. For decades, the Brits have been a London institution, another example of everything important happening in the capital whilst the rest of the country watches from a distance. Manchester getting the Brits is symbolic of a broader shift, a recognition that Britain's cultural and economic centre of gravity isn't exclusively in London anymore. Burnham gets this. I think it's a reflection of how far the city has come that this actually is happening, because we've got loads of infrastructure, hotels, everything. It's a big sign that Manchester is massively right up there now. He's connecting this to Manchester's broader story, its revival after the devastation of the 1980s. I personally feel that music started the revival of Manchester because I was growing up here in the 80s in my teenage years, and in the decades since, it's been amazing to see the city thrive, but we're not finished yet by any means. Music and Manchester are intertwined in ways that few other cities can match. The Smiths, Division Joy, Oasis, the Stone Roses, these weren't just bands, they were cultural movements that put Manchester on the global map. Burnham understands that culture and politics are connected, that a city's identity matters, and that these symbolic moments are actually important. But let's circle back to the main event, Burnham versus Farage, because this clash represents something bigger than just two politicians having a go at each other. It's a battle for what British politics is going to look like over the next few years. Farage is betting that hoovering up disaffected Tories will give reform legitimacy, parliamentary experience and a broader appeal. He's calculating that people who liked the Tories but thought they weren't right-wing enough will flock to reform now that it's got recognizable faces. Burnham's betting the opposite. He's gambling that voters, particularly in the north, will see through this strategy and recognize it for what it is, the same old Tories in different packaging. He's arguing that reform is fatally compromising its outsider status by welcoming in the ultimate insiders. And he might well be right. The upcoming by-elections are going to test these competing theories. Will voters see reform as a fresh alternative, strengthened by experienced MPs, or will they see it as Burnham does, as washed-up politicians jumping from one sinking ship to another, hoping nobody notices they're wearing different life jackets? The answer will tell us a lot about where British politics is heading.